Hello, Richard Knudson here. And recently I gave a presentation at a meeting of the Philadelphia CRM user group. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there in person, but I was able to present a live meeting. And everything about it was lovely. At least I had a good time. I was told by some of the attendees that they appreciated it too. But the one thing I forgot was to click the record button in the live meeting. So I thought I'd better re-record a summary version of it before I forgot everything or my sample data set went away. So that's what I'm going to do today. Views, charts, and dashboards was the title of the session. Here's my contact information. Find similar information on my blog and my new book, crmvizbook.com. I encourage you to check out the website for the book. But on to today's presentation. So data grids, views, and charts in Dynamic CRM 2011. The general theme of the presentation was productive but perhaps underutilized features that are accessible. These are power users and business users for the most part. Most of the things that I'm going to do show you here, or talk about, show you here, do not require system administrator privileges. So inline filtering, that's a pretty good trick I like. It can be used to do pretty good querying, very easy querying and saving views in Dynamic CRM without having to use advanced find. So for some things that you had to use advanced find for, CRM 4.0, do not anymore if you know about that trick. Inline charting also allows you to filter. I want to make sure you know how to do that. That's a pretty nice productive use of inline charting. And you can do graphical drill down entirely within a chart. You do some pretty good ad hoc analysis with that, but it's a little intricate the first time you see that. So it's easy to miss that one. I want to show you how to do that. And then just make the final point there that charts, what they do is they display the data in the existing view. A chart itself doesn't filter. You can filter by drilling down on a chart, but the chart itself doesn't apply a filter. So a good way to see that, it's easy to miss that kind of fundamental aspect of charts, but a good way to see it is to select a view and apply different charts to it, and then flip it and select a specific chart, and then see what it looks like with different views applied to it. So let's dive into the demo environment here. Here we go. So here is my demo environment. A good place to start, I think, with working with charts is the opportunities. Data grid, just because it's a good example of something that has lots of interesting different types of data, especially numeric data and dates, things like that. Make for a good illustration. So inline filtering first. Here's the data grid, and it's easy to miss this little filter button up here, but it's there, and I encourage you to check it out. And a user can do this. And what this lets me do, if I click the filter button, you'll see that the column headers in a CRM grid, such as the Open Opportunities grid, turn into drop-down, kind of Excel-ish things, and I can use those to filter. So I do in-context filtering here, and if I select a numeric field like revenue, I can do something like custom filter. Let's suppose I want to say revenue greater than, for this data set, maybe $10,000. We'll filter this down a little bit. No, that would be every record in the data set. Let's make it 20,000. So if I say greater than 20,000, I've got 8 open opportunities that meet that criteria. And maybe I want to look at opportunities where the probability value is, say, greater than 50%. That will filter this down a little bit more. So we can do that. Now we've filtered it down to 5. And maybe of these, I could, if I want to, let's filter by date. I want to see which of these I filtered by month. Notice that with some record types, in particular dates, we get these data type sort of contextual filters. So with a date field selected, I can filter by day, by week, by month. It's got awareness of the data type. So I might suppose I want to see which ones of these are coming up in the this month or next month. Do that. And it's going to filter this data set down even more. Okay, but remember what we're doing here, this is not hardwired, this is dynamic. So as we move forward, as the data changes, this view is going to update. It won't always just show one record. That's just what the data are like now. So the interesting thing about this, if I click on view, suppose I like this. This is my high probability, high revenue opportunities that are going to close in this month or next month. I can go to view and do a save as, and I'll call this probability. How's that? High probability, high value deals closing soon. Now the interesting thing about that, if I go back to the opportunities grid, I've got this selected now. It's a saved view. It's going to be available here in the My Views section. What I just did, if I go into Advanced Find, was I just used that inline filtering to create what using Advanced Find would be, it would require a little bit of knowledge to come in Advanced Find to do it. Views like this. Now, Advanced Find is great. Certainly not dissing Advanced Find. And there are plenty of things you can't do with inline filtering that you would need Advanced Find to do. But having inline filtering really narrows the scope for when you have to use Advanced Find. So it's something that my impression so far, it's not used as much as maybe the value of the feature warrants. So that's inline filtering. Let's go back to Open Opportunities here. And let's take a look at inline charting now. So with the Open Opportunities view selected, I'll expand the chart pane. And that's what I said before, with a certain view. So Open Opportunities is the selected view. I can go to Charts and select different charts and apply that chart to the underlying view. So if I look at pipeline deals, this is showing me a funnel chart for how many deals I have by the different stages of the pipeline. A different chart, pipeline revenue, might distribute across the same categories, that is stages of the sales pipeline, but get a different quantity displayed as the series in the chart. That is, this is revenue. If you're using probability to weight revenue, you might want to look at something like probability revenue weighted. So this takes, if you look at the first stage here, the qualified, so you can get 152,000 of weighted revenue in that stage. But if I go to the unweighted revenue chart, see I've got 187,000 dollars of revenue unweighted in the qualified stage of my pipeline. So charts display data in the underlying view, and sometimes you have to be careful with that, because notice I've got the Open Opportunities view selected here. If I go to the chart drop down, the chart pane there, and select actual revenue by month, it's not like you necessarily know intuitively from birth that would be a bad choice, but what happens, the chart doesn't filter the underlying data set. The underlying data set, Open Opportunities is what it is, and the actual revenue chart displays actual revenue. Dynamic CRM, when we close an opportunity, generally we take estimated revenue, which is what's displayed here, and we pop it into actual revenue, so this isn't going to be a well-defined chart for this view. But if I, on the other hand, select the One Opportunities view, the actual revenue by month chart becomes a pretty interesting chart. So here's an example of when the chart effectively agrees with the underlying view. This is also a good example of where I might want to do something like this. Go to the Charts menu, drop down the chart pane, and change its location. So this is a good example of where this is probably a better visualization, a better chart for a long sort of a time series of data. I want a lot of room for that horizontally rather than scrunching it up on the right-hand side there. Unfortunately, you can't make this stay here. So if you did want to always present this kind of a view and manage that a little better, that's what a dashboard will do for you. But this is kind of cool because this also shows you filtering. So I said that the chart by itself doesn't filter, but if you click on it, it certainly can. So here's a good example of using charts to perform inline filtering. If I click on that data point there, that's what we closed in November. If I click on this data point, there's January or February. There's January there. There's April. So this is kind of a nice way to see how productive inline filtering using charts can be. Another good example of that, let's go back to my charts, chart pane, pop that back over to the right, and let's change back to my pipeline. So there's open opportunities. Let's flip the chart to one that makes sense again. Let's look at, say, pipeline revenue. Give myself a little bit more room. So you see, we've seen inline filtering with charts. So I want to see all the deals that are in the prepare solution, or say the needs analysis stage. I click that. This is effectively the same thing as inline filtering. It's just that we're using a chart to do it. Notice the filter toggle switch is turned on now. If you look closely, you'll see that all these columns are now dropped down. So this is the same thing we did before, but we're just doing that with a chart. So that's inline filtering with a chart. So what did I mean by graphical ad hoc analysis? Well, if you've ever wondered what this thing is here, this is what I refer to as the chart drill down control. So if I've drilled down on a chart, I've selected that stage 2 there, we filtered out here. What if I do this? What if I select a different field, let's say estimated close date, and I want to see how this filtered data set is distributed out across estimated close date. I can select, say, a chart like this one, a column chart, and click this Go button here. So now this shows me an alternative visualization of this filter data set. So this is, and notice that we've got this built-in grouping. If you choose a date field and do this ad hoc sort of drill down analysis using the chart drill down control, it will automatically apply a month data grouping to a date field. So then I could do something like, suppose I want to further drill down on this a little bit more. I'm going to go into September and maybe see how those deals where there's only one deal there, so that wouldn't be very interesting. But if I select a month with multiple deals, I could, for example, see how these things are distributed out, maybe a pie chart across customers. So I select potential customers, select that pie chart, drill down a little bit more. There I can see of that 48,000 is with designer goods and 10,000 basic company and so on and so forth. So you can see it kind of paints out how the drill downs work. And I started with the open opportunities, then I drilled down into the needs analysis stage, then I went into October 2012, and now we're seeing that filter here. And I can step back up one step at a time. Here we are back up in this one, so that I could look at a different month, or I could keep going and drill all the way back up. So that's a kind of a nice trick. Like again, a couple of steps. You have to get used to using this control out here. And thinking of that, what you're doing is you're selecting that second category to distribute the filtered data set across, and then selecting the appropriate visualization. So you might do something like this, as opposed to, let's suppose we select a pie chart and we choose estimated close date. So what this will do is it will still apply the month data grouping, but it will just do a pie chart. Not necessarily the best view, but makes the point. So let's unfilter and close out the chart. And I want to show you something else. Let's navigate to accounts now. And accounts, like opportunities, has lots of built-in visualizations. In particular, I've got the active accounts view selected. And what I want to show you here is how you can select different visualizations for the same underlying view. Another kind of application of this. There's accounts by industry, accounts by owner, so different visualizations, the same underlying view. Accounts by territories, new accounts by month. Probably not the most interesting in this data set here, because they were all created when I provisioned this 30-day free trial. But so that shows different visualizations of the same underlying data set. A different exercise is to select a specific visualization and then see how different views will change that visualization. So here's accounts by territories. Let's select different views of accounts. So if I compare active accounts to my active accounts, see, I've got the same visualization, but now I've got a different underlying view. So here's accounts by territories, central. So I can see all of my accounts are in central as opposed to overall distribution of accounts. Or if I select accounts by industry and compare how the overall distribution of accounts by industry is with the distribution of my accounts by industry, I see that we're probably in need of some verticalization at this company. So I've kind of spread too thin maybe. So we should maybe go through and select some of the other insurance accounts, and if I want to focus on insurance, we could assign them all to me. So I go to active accounts by industry, select those insurance accounts, select all of them there. I just use the view, the grid, to select them, assign them to me. So maybe I'm going to change from a kind of a territory-based model to more of a vertical model. So I've got the insurance accounts, I assign those to me. I'll go to my business services accounts, assign those to Herb. And now I'm actually getting some work done as we use with these visualizations. So refresh that chart. Now, if I look at the distribution of accounts by industry overall and compare it to the distribution of my accounts, so I'm getting a little bit more specialized here. So I've got more of the insurance accounts now. But anyway, so that's one way to do that. And then that would also have implications for now I've got accounts in different regions. So, but anyway, you can get some interesting work done working like that. Okay, so that's a little bit on data grids, views, and charts. Let me segue now and talk a little about dashboards, which is effectively an extension. In order to effectively work with dashboards, you need to understand the sort of the foundation components, which for the most part are views and charts. But what dashboards are for is I think of them really as being they're optimized for managed presentation of your most important data. So you can do ad hoc analysis with dashboards, but they're really designed for when you want to control, you as a power user or you as a designer want to create a presentation of most important data and make it really easy for somebody to consume it. So not require somebody to have to go through the ad hoc analysis that we were just doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about some design and layout considerations for dashboards, give you some guidance on that. Again, you can perform ad hoc analysis with dashboards. It's kind of well hidden, and I'll show you how to do that, but it can be done even though that's not necessarily the primary application of them. And then I want to show you a couple of kind of cool non-traditional uses of dashboards. In particular, I'll show you this one using a subgrid on a custom form to make kind of a record-centric dashboard. So navigate to an account record and be able to get a graphical view without having to do anything, graphical view of maybe their sales history or resolved cases, or closed activities, things like that. And I'll just mention here that you can also do some things with dashboards besides just charts. You can also put lists on them and iframes. You can use iframe on a dashboard to, say, expose a report. It's a nice way to do that. Relieves the user from having to drill down and go find the report somewhere. And HTML web resources can also be used on a dashboard to allow interaction. So putting an HTML button on there that allows a user to do something can make it pretty easy to get to where they need to go. So let's take a look at dashboards. Okay, so here we are back in the demo environment again. And if you think about what we did earlier, I went to opportunities, Now we're sort of doing the ad hoc analysis here. We expand the chart pane and we look at pipeline deals. Then I look at my pipeline revenue unweighted and my pipeline revenue weighted. Now that's fine, but it does involve a fair amount of clicking. So one good use of the dashboard would be to create the managed view of that so the user doesn't have to click. We just go to dashboards and create the custom sales pipeline dashboard. So what we've done here, I'll minimize the ribbon, give us a little bit more room. What we've done here is basically use the top row, and we've created 3 different visualizations of the same underlying view. It's all my pipeline, my open opportunities pipeline. Kind of like this approach. This is a good design consideration, or it's kind of a best practice that you might do, is say apply the same view but 3 different visualizations of it, say in a row, or you could do this with a column too. It kind of depends on whether you prefer reading left to right or top to bottom. But anyway, so I've got open opportunities unweighted here, revenue, then I've got my weighted revenue here, and then I've got the pipeline deals there. Same basic view, 3 different visualizations. And then down below, I've created a list component on this dashboard and put the same view underneath there. So for example, if I was going to interact with these and close out some of these, you'd see the other components update because they're all based on the same view. So for example, notice if I hover over a dashboard component, if it's a chart that is, I do get these buttons. You don't normally, when you're working interactively, inline that is, with charts, you won't see these buttons. These are only on dashboards. This one, I can make it a little bit bigger. Not too interesting. If I close that out, I go back to the dashboard. But this middle button here I find myself using a lot because what this allows me to do is it opens up a second window, brand new window, with the same basic information. So the same view selected and the same visualization over here in the chart pane. This is kind of nice because now I've got sort of the best of both worlds. I'm kind of using the managed presentation as kind of a launch pad, but then I can still, if I want to, for my power users or the folks that don't mind doing a little bit of clicking, you can get in here and get a little bit more intimate, up close and personal with these data, because you can not only see the chart, but you can see the data as well. So I can still go ahead and filter this. And note, remember, this is independent. This is a new window, so I can do anything I want here without impacting the dashboard itself. I can always close that out and go to the dashboard. So another thing I can do with this is I can do, there's a question like this at the user group meeting. I was glad somebody asked it because it's kind of a neat trick. I can also, I don't have to open up that window. I can do my interactive graphical filtering here. Notice if I click on one of these components, I still get the same drill down control, right? So I can still choose this trick here. It's not quite as managed as before, a little bit more difficult, but if I click estimated close date, and let's use this column chart, click go, see what that does. That's going to give me a similar experience to what we saw before. So I'm drilling down, same experience here, and I could click on, say, September, and select a field to distribute those across if I want to see by customer, maybe with a pie chart. You can see my September stuff and the needs analysis phase is all with one customer. Now, the one thing that this doesn't let you do is it doesn't let you open the form from here. So what if I wanted to interact with the data and actually do something? Suppose I'm going to use this to drive the sales meeting, and I want to go in here and maybe close one of these deals that's actually going to close. Well, for that, that's what this would be for. So here, let's drill down and see what's in our closing stage, or close stage. Open this up, and let's suppose we go ahead and close this out, close it as 1, close the date of today. We'll go ahead and do that. And now remember, what these views do is, remember, these charts reflect the underlying data set, but now there's nothing in here because I just closed it. So that one goes away. That's correct. And if I refresh this here, what you'll see is you'll see the close stage go away here. But then if I refresh these other views, you can see that it's going away from there too. As soon as we refresh, you get automatic refresh anytime you basically press the F5 key, anytime you refresh the browser or whatever the default interval, maybe a few minutes. But so notice now, since we closed that one opportunity, nothing else in the closing stage here, same thing here. So that would go away from any of these views. That is kind of another advantage of having an entire dashboard show visualizations, different visualizations of the same underlying data set, right? Because then see the dashboard update as changes happen in real time. So that's kind of a sort of overview of how to work with dashboards. When it comes to dashboard design, for dashboards, click New. I can create a new, any user by default can create a new personal dashboard. That's what this would be if I created it. And the dashboard that we saw there, that 3-column one, that's a good example of an application of this one. On the other hand, if suppose you had 4 different visualizations that you wanted to display for the same underlying data set, maybe this one would be a good use of that. But in this case, I had 3. I had weighted revenue, unweighted revenue, and then deal count. That would be a good application of this one. So there are business considerations, by the way, that drive your choice of these. It depends on what kind of a managed presentation you want to provide. Okay, now let me show you what I said is kind of a non-traditional application of dashboards. Let's navigate to Accounts. And this time, rather than doing a graphical analysis of sort of across different opportunity records or across accounts, maybe what I want to do is I want to do some graphical analysis of business at a specific account. So here's my standard account form. And you don't usually think of an account form, a contact form or whatever as being a dashboard, but what we can do in Dynamics CRM 2011 is create multiple forms. And one example of multiple forms might be to have different data entry forms for different people. You've got service people that need a certain view of it, or sales people that need a different, or maybe you have different sales teams that need a different view of the opportunity record type. But here's a different use of it. What I can do is I can create an account dashboard. It's a different form, same entity, but here's my kind of standard data entry form for accounts. Here's, on the other hand, a form that's really designed as a dashboard. Notice I don't have anything else on this form. I took everything off of it except for account name and the website if I want that. Get rid of that too for that matter. My sample data set. But notice I've got 2 charts in here, one for actual revenue by month and one for case mix by type. I could select different charts, the same experience here. If I want to select a different chart for the same underlying data set. So what I've done here is I've used something called a subgrid to expose this, and what the subgrid will do, if I customize the form, I'll show you how to do this real quick, and this is the only example of everything we've seen so far that you need system administrator privileges to do. This is really more of a customizer thing than a power user or business user thing. But if I customize this form, that doesn't mean it's hard. It's still pretty easy to do. What I did was I simply used subgrids, and notice I'm on the wrong version of this form. Right? So I want to be customizing let's go customize the entities so I can select the right version of the form. So I'm going to customize the account entity, click Forms, and notice I've got 3. There's my standard one, but here's my dashboard. So I created this dashboard form by effectively doing a save as. So you might, if you're doing this from scratch, open up the standard form, the information form, and then click Save As, and I save this as a dashboard. So if I went through this exercise, maybe I wanted to create a dashboard 3. As you saw, I already had 2. Click that, and what it's going to use, in this case, what it'll do is it'll take the current form that I had and create a new form based on that. So then I could start customizing this one. So now I've got these, but let's go ahead and take a look at the dashboard form that I had created here. So you can see everything's off this form. All I did was just remove stuff. But then I put down 2 subgrids. I did an insert, and I inserted a subgrid. And then I configured its properties. How did I get them side by side? Well, I went to formatting and turned them both into 1 column subgrids with 10 rows. So effectively, this is kind of the dashboard equivalent here because this is a managed presentation, right? I want each of those to always be 1 column, 10 rows. But what's on the dashboards? Here's the interesting part. Subgrids, what's on subgrids, I should say. See, it looks so much like a dashboard. I thought it was a dashboard. So subgrids allow you to select only related records. So here's how we get the filtering. We're basically using the current record to filter only related records. And I select the entity. So I select opportunities. And then I can select a view. So if I select 1 opportunities, and I can turn the view selector off in this case, because I probably don't want, in this case, I don't want the user having to go and worry about, oh, wait a second, do I have the right view selected for this? So I'm going to turn the view selector off. And the default chart is going to be actual revenue by month. I can let them select maybe different charts, but if I really want to lock this down, I could do that. Just to show you the impact. Go ahead and do that. And then for cases, resolve cases, did the same thing. I put subgrid down, only related records, but this time I chose cases. I chose the resolve cases view. Okay, and I turned the view selector off so they can only look at resolve cases. And this case will show the chart only, but will also display chart selection because there's a lot of these things that are actually relevant for resolved cases. So these will work fine. I could change it to default if I wanted to, things like that. So by the time we get that published and out into production then, what you get is this nice managed presentation just from the context of an account record. So here's a store. If I navigate to another account, and I can use the form navigation for that, so I go from, say, a store to best of things. There's no data for this one. Let's go back to active accounts, and let's navigate from my first record here. See if it remembers which chart type I have selected. Let's choose case mix by origin, and I navigate to the next record in the data set, so advanced components. So here's actual revenue by month, and notice it goes back to the default chart type for this, and there's no data for this views. But so anyway, if I went in and added a new, no drill down, by the way, on these charts. Unfortunately, that would be kind of nice. Go into opportunities for advanced components. And if I go to 1 opportunities, you can see here's this data set that is represented probably in a little bit, certainly, not probably, certainly a more visual way with this dashboard approach. So what you could do, by the way, if you wanted to allow interaction, is you could put another dashboard, or another subgrid underneath here that showed the list version of this. And then users could interact and see changes updated and things like that. So anyway, those are a few things that that I reviewed at the Philadelphia CRM user group meeting, and I just wanted to get this down so so the folks that were there didn't have to suffer from not clicking the record button. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Richard Knudson signing out.